expressing them, and are not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated, its staff, or its board of directors.
We are a part of everything that is beneath us, above us, and around us. Our past is our present. Our present is our future. And our future is 7 generations, past and present.
Wake up, you can hear her cries. Wake up, stop trying to deny what you do and what you use has no consequence on you. Wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up. Rape the world and take away the layers of her skin. Fractured and divided, and she may let you in. Only for a moment will she tolerate your greed. Gas and oil and broken soil exceeds what you need. Wake up, you can hear her cries. Wake up, stop trying to deny what you do and what you use has no consequence on you. Wake up, wake up. Ravaged and disfigured, we have left a naughty face. She screams for life and love, but we don't make it make. We think entitlement, we have the right to take and take away from her without sacrifice. Wake up, you can hear her cries. Wake up, stop trying to deny what you do and what you use has no consequence on you. Wake up, wake up.
We are the air, we are the water, we are the sun, we carry the fire. There is no greater message, there is no greater lessons. Our lives come from our essence. Wake up and heed the message, though we have gone astray. Your time is now or never. We have to come together, we have to find our way back to that sacred balance. We have to stop the damage, this is our final challenge. Together we soar, divided we fall. This is bigger than activism, bigger than racism. Our mother is screaming out, cause I sustain the doubt. No more debating the facts, so stop all these heinous acts. Humanity depends on this pact. Just staying rock solid and tall. This ain't a hip-hop song, this is an action call. We gotta stand up and fight the powers that be. Together, one universal family. Wake up!
Who will be her voice? She has given you a choice. Decide where you stand on this sacred land. This is not a native issue or activism or racism. This is all the work together, standing strong as her protectors.
Yo, yo, yo.
Wake up, you can hear her cries. Wake up, stop trying to deny what you do and what you use has no consequence on you. Wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up. Just tell me which side of history you're on. Long ways on beat on bombs. Tell me which side are you on?
Which side you on?
So no, beat on so long. Which side of history do you belong?
Well, from the mountains to the sea, from the forest to the desert. Yes, wake up, wake up, wake up. This is the Indigeneity Rising, heard only on KFEI Fresh Air Radio. We are 42 years of radio without boundaries. We're heard locally at 90.3 FM HD in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and on the web at kfei.org. We're also streaming live on Facebook Live this afternoon. And I'm Roy Taylor, Pawnee Nation, your host for news, analysis, commentary, and conversation and inspiration, and I hope a little humor this afternoon about Indigenous people and Native American identity, reality, and experience. And this is the episode for Wednesday, January 13th. So that's the second Wednesday here in the new month of January in the new year of 2021. I'm in Studio Stronghold on the banks of the beautiful Minnehaha Creek in South Minneapolis, Minnesota, Turtle Island. And we're sending our signal out into the universe across the Milky Way to all of our ancestors out there. And I know we're going to make them very proud this afternoon because I have two wonderful guests, two gentlemen, both over in St. Paul now, but we're going to be talking by virtual reality, by the magic of broadcasting, which both of them are very familiar with. So we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some information, and it's time for you to go and tell all of your friends and family to tune in now, either on your dial or on your device or Facebook Live. Well, as we always begin every program, that was Kelly Jackson with Wake Up. That's our clarion call around here. Robert knows all about that. I think Don does as well. They were both out at Standing Rock back about 5 years ago. And she composed that and created that, recorded it along with Theo Yancey. And so wake up, that's what we use around here to remind everybody that it is time to stand on the side of Indigenous people. In fact, I always say in response to their question, which side of history are you going to be on? And if you are on the side of Indigenous people, Native Americans, and other people of color, I know you are going to be on the right side of history. I have no doubt about that. Okay, let's see. Before I was kind of giving you a hint about the program today, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as I introduce my guests. But there's a young woman, and she is Navajo and Menominee, and she's always a good friend of Indigeneity Rising, and she was putting me on to an announcement I want to make before I forget. Tonight at 7:30 at Central Time, there's going to be an Indigenous comic speaker series. And that's, let me see if I can find that for you here. That Allison Waiku, if you need to get more information from her, I think it's at HCLIB, and that's Allison Waiku. Dr. Francis, let's see here, where is his name now? Oh, he's the CEO and founder of Native Realities, and an Indigenous imagination company dedicated to unleashing the Indigenous imagination through popular culture. So that includes everything. A lot of the young people out there, comic books, graphic novels, games, toys, collectibles, zines, all of that. So go to online, it's us02web.zoom.us, us02web.zoom.us. That's tonight at 7:30, and it is free. It's going to be about 1 hour there. So that is the Indigenous Comics Series, and that is Dr. Francis. That's sponsored by Hennepin County Library. Okay, glad we got that in, but sometimes I leave them to the end and then I forget all about it. Okay, let me introduce my two guests here this afternoon because we want to spend a lot of time with them. I was joking this morning when I put on the Indigeneity Rising Facebook page post the Three Amigos episodes that myself and Robert Pilot have been involved in with Jamie Edwards, who's from the Mille Lacs Band. And we also added another to our trio, and that was back a couple of years ago in the summertime. The Native Governance Center had a Native American Quiz Bowl, and Jamie couldn't make it to that, so Don stepped in, and we had a great time that night. We came in second, us old beards, I think, behind New Native Theater. So let me go ahead. I'm just going to very briefly introduce them, and they can talk a little bit more about themselves. I've asked them to share with us how they're holding up under COVID-19. First, I do want to express my condolences to Don. I think he lost his mom last year to COVID-19. I haven't had a chance to see him in person, but I did extend my condolences earlier, but we just want to remember her as well. As we all know, COVID-19 is still here in Turtle Island, and we're all taking the necessary precautions. But that's Don Eubanks, who is Mille Lacs Band Ojibwe, He's a well-known instructor, activist, mentor to Native students around the Twin Cities and beyond. He's been a former administrator up at the Mille Lacs Band and the state of Minnesota in the Human Services Department. And he's also been, a more recent of years, he can tell us more about that, one of the four co-hosts for Counter Stories, which originated with Minnesota Public Radio, and there was kind of a falling out there. So he's going to tell us a little bit about more how Counter Stories has migrated now. I believe he's got some new news for us, and he can share that with us. The next guest along today for this discussion is Robert Pilot, who's no stranger to Indigeneity Rising. So I'm welcoming him back. Every time I want to have a good sense of what's going on in Native politics and within the Native environmental community, I always go to Robert, but I wanted to have him on. I told him and Jamie that we were going to try and get together early in the year to talk about everything we've been through here with the elections. And that's exactly what we're going to do today, because the last time I had Robert on, we were talking about education, coming back to public schools as well. So to both of you, welcome. I know you've got your own tribal names, so you can go ahead. Don, why don't you go first by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you, Roy. I thought you did a really good job of already introducing me. I think that folks who know me in the community are a little aware, but currently I'm just an associate professor at Metropolitan State University, and
you're anticipating retiring, right?
Well, yeah,
from the formal role, I guess.
Yes, I did put in my notice, so this is my last semester. After 8 years of teaching in the social work program at Metropolitan State, I'm calling it quits from work, from full-time employment with the state. Doesn't mean I'm going to disappear. My heart is, social work values line up with my values as an Ojibwe individual. And my entire adult life, has been focused toward social and racial justice. So by no means by retirement am I going to fade away. In fact, I'm getting inquiries that kind of keeping my calendar pretty busy. So I'm actually looking forward to retirement. In between, the difference is that I get to pick and choose what I want to do. And then in between that time, hunt, fish, and play golf. And okay. I'm looking forward to that.
Hey, I understand there's one more golf course that's now available. Now that PGA has taken that tournament away from Trump.
yeah, right. And rightfully so.
Let's bring Robert in right now as well. This is Robert Pilot, host of Native Roots Radio and public school teacher over there in St. Paul. Welcome. How are you, Robert?
Hochankraja, Wakujahade, Hinga Dana. Greetings, my friends and relatives in four directions. I'm doing very well. Peeny Gigi for asking me on. And it's
always, my brother.
It's a privilege to be on with Don and yourself. Last time we saw each other, I got robbed. We should have won that.
Those youngsters beat us.
I think it's bad when we say 40-year-olds are youngsters, though, Don, because it was like Barry Hand and that gang over there. Like, whoa. I think they helped write the questions, but I think we did a good job. I didn't have my glasses. I had to wear sunglasses, and it was a traumatic loss, and so I'm glad.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed. I found a picture of both of you together from that event. I was trying to find it individually, but then I saw that. I noticed you didn't have your glasses on. So.
I left my glasses at home, but being an old person, I had prescription sunglasses as a backup. But
hey, well, let me just turn to a serious note here. But both of you, tell me how you're faring. You and your families. You've got children as well, grown children, and spouses or significant others. So how are you both holding up there since I've seen you last?
Well, as you mentioned, Roy, early on, COVID has impacted, all of our lives. And you know, in one of the Counter Stories podcasts while we were still with NPR, I did share that back in April, um, my mother was part of that population that was in long-term care, and she contracted COVID and she died after about a week and a half.
Mm.
It was devastating, right? I mean, at that time, you know, even now, you know, there's still confusion in terms of, you know, what we should be doing in terms of COVID-19. But back then, there was a lot of confusion, and you know, there was a lot of anger because you're upset that one of our most vulnerable populations have been so easily exposed to this disease, and so there was anger mixed with extreme pain, because at that time, when someone passes away from COVID, you cannot see them. Um, and their bodies are immediately whisked away. And in our communities, you know, I'm a member of the Mille Lacs Band, and in our communities, we have certain time frames and traditions that we follow when a loved one starts their journey. And we were unable to follow those traditions. And I think that is what was most heartbreaking, that someone you love so dearly, who is a part of our community, a respected elder, a survivor of our boarding schools, um, and for her to, you know, leave so unceremoniously. So as a family, we're looking forward still to when we can
Mhm.
come together and actually have that and honor her in the proper way that we do in all our various communities. So I'm still looking
Oh,
forward to that.
yeah, good on you. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. Hey, Robert, how about you? I know you and Wendy do a lot of walking, and this has probably cut down on your social life too, because you are like a powwow maven. You've every dance in the past I would see you at and get the, you know,
Except when
how
I
it was going.
except when I hurt my knee.
Oh, that's right.
I was the selfie king then. Uh, Look at me. So there was a couple things like for the holidays. We saw our children, but we were semi outdoors and all masked up. Um, we have been walking. I think a lot of people have maybe gained weight during this time. I've lost weight because I'm walking early in the morning before school starts, and then in the afternoon with the dogs. Also, one of the things I'd like to bring up is that we've been doing a symposium since March, and that's been on Facebook Live. And we started doing that right away when COVID hit. And we had people like Ruth Buffalo, Mary Kunish, we had Red Dawn from South Dakota. We had all these people, Amber Torres, all these people from all over Turtle Island to check in and see how they were doing. And that we were trying to make lemonade with lemons, and I think that's really my capacity in radio and Facebook Live and things like that, and it got bigger because people were stepping up and wanted to speak the truth of what was going on. And so it's been hard because yes, I am a very social person, but I don't want to get COVID. I'm a former smoker of 30 some years. I've only quit smoking for like 15 years, and I don't want to get COVID. I'm in that risk. I know I look young, but I'm almost 60 years old. I'm a junior elder, or soon to be elder, pretend elder, or something like that. But we have to be careful, and our people are so susceptible to it. And one of the
Right,
guests
right.
one of the guests I have now on my weekly show, Native Roots Radio, which is on 6 to 7, is Dr. Stately on Mondays. And he
Anthony,
checks in,
yes. Yes, Tony. Yeah.
and he has unbelievable knowledge about what's going on in the Native community. And he had COVID.
Right. He's scheduled here to be up on my program in a couple of weeks as well. And, I'm getting the vaccination soon here in a couple of weeks here. So I'll tell you guys how that goes. So if I cried when they put the needle in.
I can share with you now, as an elder of the Mille Lacs band, my wife and I were able to drive up last week, and we got our first round, and we go back February 3rd. So,
Good,
and I think that, being a member of a tribe right now is in fact benefiting many of our people, because the tribes are getting those vaccines, and most of our tribal numbers are much smaller than the general population, so they're able to offer these. Most tribes are able to offer these vaccines and get them to their tribal members a little bit quicker than if we were waiting in the general population. And so for once, it's good to be Indian, huh? In such a negative atmosphere that we find ourselves currently in, it's good to be Indian. So it's like a flu shot, seriously, I'm like Robert, I'm in that high risk category. The COVID, I have an 18-year-old daughter who graduated this past year, who was unable to go to prom, who was unable to have any kind of graduation ceremony as a result of COVID, but still elected to go to the University of Iowa. So of course, her mother and I were extremely anxious about that. And because sometimes in Iowa, they weren't always putting strong COVID restrictions in place.
Right.
And many students contracted it. Well, she managed to remain COVID-free. She's been home since Thanksgiving. She has not stepped foot inside our house. She's staying with her older brother, and they've made the decision to do that in order to protect me and her mother.
Right.
And families throughout our country are having to make those kind of tough decisions. And like Robert, we've seen them, but it's been an outdoor with masks on, socially distanced. We exchanged food during the holidays, but we were unable to come together. So, I'm looking for us to make it through the backside, because we're Native, we're storytellers, we're social people, and to be able to get together is taking a toll on us.
Right. The Jews have a saying, next year in Jerusalem. And that's kind of the way I see this, is next year, whenever our ceremonies start, our powwows start, we're all going to be able to gather there again. We're all going to be able to touch each other, see each other, smell each other's breath without masks. Hopefully that means I better brush my teeth then. So, hey, listen, I'm going to take a break here, you two. Why don't we'll collect our thoughts, and I want to get down to this. We may have to break in with some news about the vote on the impeachment that's going on of Donald J. Trump here, 45th president. So, and I know you two are very familiar with that, but let's take this breakdown and we'll get back to some serious topics when we return. I just want to remind everybody you're listening to KFEI Fresh Air Community Radio. This is 90.3 FM HD in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And we're on the web at kfei.org. We're on Facebook Live this afternoon as well. This is Indigeneity Rising, and we'll be right back with you in just a second.
If you or a loved one has been ticketed, arrested, or held in jail in Ramsey County, you may have a court date and not know it. To learn more and check your court date, visit ramseycounty.us/court.
Ladies and gentlemen,
it's Travel Ramo 555, Wednesday nights at 11:59 on KFAI 90.3 FM.
I'm the man for you.
We're playing the best and the only platters that matter. The rock and roll power in the midnight hour. We got the hits, skits, and bits blabbering on to the break of dawn. It's Travel Ramo 555, Wednesday nights at 11:59 on KFAI 90.3 FM. It's gonna be crazy!
right. I think that's Ted Napoleon or Todd Napoleon, and I'm not sure what nation or tribe he is, but we always have him on the program every week. Maybe Mason can tell us about that. But just want to welcome you back to Indigeneity Rising. I'm Roy Taylor, your host here, and I'm speaking with two good friends, two brothers, Robert Pilot and Don. I almost called you Don Samuels. Okay, Don. All right, so welcome back to the two of you here. We're just. I want to talk. I want to talk a little bit about the elections, recent elections back in November. It seems like almost a lifetime ago. Do any of you have, either one of you have any insights or any thoughts about how that all played out? You know, I was trying to keep abreast of it with DNC Indian liaison Teresa Sheldon out on the West Coast, and then Clara Pratt was she's Navajo. She was the liaison to the Biden campaign, and they're still going. There's a Native American caucus for the Democratic National Convention. Or if you have any insights about local elections, statewide as well, the Republicans in the state Senate were returned. They seem to still be obstructive to a lot of good ideas, particularly when it comes to COVID-19. So tell me, what are your thoughts, either one of you, gentlemen?
Well, I'm really excited for Heather Keeler up in the Moorhead area who won. She'd been on my show many times, and now we're producing a show for her on Facebook Live called Together with Heather. And that's on Wednesdays on Facebook Live on Native Roots Radio Facebook page. Young warriors like that showing up and getting elected. And I'm excited, you know. Mary Kunesh now is a state senator. What we can control is local politics and amplify our sisters and brothers' voices. And I think that's one thing that Don and yourself do really well. And that's my mission, is to amplify voices. And it was a good election, you know, for Native people. I think there was 137 Native Americans across Turtle Island that were voted in this year. And that's an amazing number, even though a few of them might have been in red states and wore red cloth maybe. But I think one of the most surprising things for me, Don and Roy, is that was 74 million people that believed in 45, which we never called him the president on my radio show. We called him 45. That to me, and then what happened this past Wednesday, I feel like I'm in the upside down world.
Yeah. You know, I wasn't involved on state or federal election efforts, but was involved here in the community where I'm part of in Roseville. And we had a young Native American Anishinaabe woman named Dana Thompson, who ran for Roseville City Council. It was actually the second time she ran. This time the first two top vote getters were elected to the council. She came in third. And so we're going to work with her again in 2 years. Because as I reminded her, Joe Biden ran for president twice prior before he got elected. So, you know, so here locally, you know, we'll be working very hard to get her elected. In terms of January 6th, you know, like I mentioned, you know, I'm one of the 4 co-hosts that does Counter Stories, and we discussed this. We talked about this last night in our podcast that will air. You know, and I also mentioned that we now are with Ampers Radio, and we will also be on one of the sister stations. Hopefully KFAI will pick us up and run Counter Stories, but our first podcast will air this Monday, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, 6 p.m. on KMOJ 89.9.
Oh, great.
Right. But in our podcast, we kind of looked at the intersection of race and religion, and how we saw the events of January 6th with the chaos at Capitol Hill. on state cap or U.S. Capitol, and we talked about that within a historical perspective. So for communities of color, for the American Indian community, for our indigenous populations, it was just a continuation of the relationship that we have had ever since the white man got lost and landed here, and and our relationships with them have been one of where historically, I explained how this Christianity in relation to racial overtones this country has toward African Americans, our people, and other folks who are not from the dominant culture are intertwined. And for us, they use this Christian idea of manifest destiny. It was their God-given right to do whatever they wanted to do with us savages, right? They took our land, completed genocide. So it goes on and on and on, and it's a historical fact. There was a report that came out that is examining the relationship of evangelical Christians and MAGA, right? And part of this Trump base. But for us, it's fact. I mean, who created the Ku Klux Klan? It was Southern white Christians in the name of Christianity. I mean, so there has never been no separation. It's like these reports of cops, they're beginning to identify police who were in the crowd that actually went into the building. Well, who made up the Klan? It was the forefathers of every small town in the South, or who made up the militias and everything else that was used to subjugate us and collect us and put us on our reservations. So this is America. This is the story of America. And so for many of us, Wednesday was just another day.
I agree with you. Yeah, that's well said. Robert, what do you think about this radical right threat to Indian country, to Native Americans? I mean, what's been your experience, or do you have any insights on that?
Well, I'd just like to put it into nowadays terms. For me, we're fighting a pipeline up in the deep north, and I wouldn't have a radio show. I wouldn't be doing all these things that I'm doing media-wise if it wasn't for Standing Rock and what happened in Standing Rock and all the misinformation that was happening there, or lack of information. That pipeline was supposed to go through Bismarck, and they said, oh no, pipelines leak, put it through the Indian country. Well, we're dealing with that right now, and Governor Walz, shame on you, he could have stopped this. Our sister Peggy denounced it, and many people have gone up there in Winona LaDuke's camp, and there's 5 camps up in the deep north. So that's happening right now. We had Stenick bring in his troops into Standing Rock, and we voted him out. So I think one of the things that's happened is we've gotten awoke as Native people. They registered 9,000 new Native American voters. And that's what we need to do. We need to resist, divest, join a group, and run for office. And I think we have to play their game. And I think that's what's happening when we talk about Dana. You talk to Ruth Buffalo or any politician, a Native politician or any politician that's run, usually loses 1 or 2 elections. But the point is they keep on running. And I'm glad that sister's going to run again, because she's been on my show quite a few times. And she has some good words to say and good actions to happen. So this is the beginning of the awoke. They talk about the 7 fires and the 8 fires. Well, this is happening right now, and I've been able to witness this through the political landscape of our natives getting elected, and also shows like both of your shows that are amplifying our Native voices and our BIPOC partners.
Yeah, Robert, tell us quickly about those. You've got other broadcasts besides Native Roots Radio now. You've got the symposiums, you've got Pilots Progressive Party, and then you said the Heather Keeler show now.
Well, we produce Heather Keeler's show, Native Roots Radio, but we do the symposium on Sunday, and We do Monday through Friday now, Native Roots Radio. We're in Chicago and Madison, and we're 5 days a week, 6 to 7. And then we do the best of Native Roots Radio on KFAI on Fridays from 7 to 8. And so, again, I can, as you both probably remember by talking to me and hanging out with me, I can barely read and talk. It's all the guests that really are what make this happen, to amplify their voice. And the success that Native Roots Radio is because of the guests that have stepped up and spoke their truth. But yeah, so I'm on 5 days a week, and then rebroadcast or the best of on KFAI on 7 to 8. So I want to say Peeny Gigi for KFAI for supporting the people that are on my show.
Yeah, and Don, you're going to be on KMOJ this coming Monday, but you're also looking at other stations within the Ampers network, including KFEI. You know, we've got a digital channel now. We'll probably be looking at adding more content there as well. So who are those co-hosts? I've forgotten now who it is.
The co-hosts of Counter Stories are Anthony Galloway, Luz Marie Freyas, who just started a new position as Deputy State Attorney General with Keith Ellison's office, and Hilary Lee, who is a Asian media artist. And you know, we had done Counter Stories with NPR for almost 6 years, and you know, as you mentioned, we left because of the lack of support that we were receiving from NPR, and so you know, we're entering into this new association with Ampers Radio. They have been expressed quite excitement having us come on board, but you know, I wanted to make a quick comment about what Robert had said, you know, because one of the
Go ahead.
One of the analogies I use in the classroom to help students understand the significance of environmental injustice is to examine what's happening in Indian country with these pipelines. And the analogy I use with them is to look back again in history. And if we look at where and how the United States, and it was decided to put in the freeway systems went through every community of color throughout every US city in the United States purposely. And the same thing is happening with the pipelines going through Indian country. And it's an analogy that I make because, you know, we know what it did to those communities. Here locally, it was Rondo, right? But if you just have to look at a map and you can see that freeway system and these pipelines are doing the same thing. So, you know, yeah, the oil spills weren't going to impact Bismarck, but you know, Indian country is fine, and it just pisses me off, you know, and it's that because you know the lieutenant governor supports our stand against these pipelines, and but yet it still went through, and so you know that speaks to that dichotomy. The other thing that I just wanted to quickly mention, that as long as we're here, is the fact that not only did this individual receive 74 million votes, Biden received what, 80? And many of our indigenous populations, the state of Arizona, I think, was carried by the tribes for Biden. Right. We can't lose sight over the fact that one of the political parties put barriers in place, trying their best to limit our ability to be able to cast ballots. If I remember correctly, in South Dakota, they didn't allow our cousins over there who live on reservations that have post office boxes. They could not register to vote from there because they didn't have a permanent mailing address in the state of Georgia. Yeah. They put many barriers in place, preventing the Black population from being able to vote, and we still got out. And to have 45 sit there and tell us that our votes don't count because we came out in force to elect this current president pisses me off every time he opens his mouth to try to negate my vote.
I'm glad this is on KFAI. You can't say pisses me off on my radio show, Don.
Oh, all right.
Well, I don't know
I
if it's
didn't
one of
think
those
pisses me off was a
7 words.
naughty word.
Oh, okay.
Well, I guess we'll find out here
It
soon.
angers me.
Say, I wanted to get to that, this whole idea of the native vote participation, because I know, but I wanted to take a break here as well. Robert, you were mentioning Mary Konesh Podine, and she is going to be on the redistricting committee in the Senate now. So that's going to be an important development, I think, that's going to have to take place in the next year or so. And then we've got the midterm elections coming up, both nationally and then also we're always going to have statewide. I forget what they call them, constitutional offices, I guess. So governor, lieutenant governor, all of that. But let's take a break here quickly, and we'll come back to that, and then let's get to this impeachment vote today. We talked about January 6th last weekend, but we've got something going today, and we've got inauguration as well next week of Joe Biden, president-elect number 46. So I'll be right back with you too. This is Roy Taylor with Indigeneity Rising, and you're listening to KFEI, Fresh Air Community Radio. We are 42 years of radio without boundaries, heard locally at 90.3 FM HD in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and at kfei.org, and streaming on Facebook Live this afternoon. So we'll be right back with you in just a few seconds.
Hi, let me tell you about a Fresh Air favorite called Reprogram with DJ Joe Yolo. It's an exciting exploration of electronic music every Thursday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock a.m. and archived on computers at kfai.org. Come on, let's jam. You know you gotta get with the program. Reprogram.
It's the end of an error. That's ERROR, Celebration Part 2. Join the virtual celebration on Saturday, January 16th at 7 p.m. Proceeds from the event will be donated to local organizations and causes that have been impacted by the previous administration over the last 4 years. The evening will feature performances by Katie Vernon, Kevin Odegaard, Eric Brandt, Paul Metza, and several special guests. Plus, games to test your knowledge of the last 4-year presidential term. For more details and to join the End of an Era Super Extravaganza Part 2 on Saturday, January 16 at 7 p.m., visit endofanerror.godaddysite.com.
Well, that's the great Jim Boyd, Colville Tribal Indian, as he says, from Washington State there. He left us too soon. He used to be with the band Exit, XIT, so enjoy listening to that as well. So thank you, Jim. Well, I want to return to my guests here that are, I was going to say in the studio, but we're all virtual studio today. And I want to give Robert quickly an opportunity to announce his candidacy for the Ho-Chunk Nation Tribal Council. So tell us a little bit more about that, Robert, and then we'll move on to this Trump put together the word impeachment with Robert's new candidacy here.
I've been asked by elders to run for a seat that's vacant, that's open for election, and for District 4 of the Ho-Chunk Nation. And District 4 is basically everywhere but Wisconsin. So Hawaii, New York, Florida. We have people all over from Ho-Chunk Nation that can vote for me. And I'm running for a legislator just because I want to give back to my nation and to my people. And I feel like the timing's right. I could retire from teaching and then jump right into that and still do some radio. And so there's things that I have connections now through my radio show and being out and about that really could help our nation. I know diversifying our incomes is one of the big things. And, you know, casinos aren't going to be around forever. We all know that. And so we got to get out of that mindset. And there's some great work happening with like Robert Blake from Red Lake, does Solar Bear, who's on my show every week, and Winona's Hemp. And there's things that we can diversify our economies and still give a healthy per cap to our relatives that are enrolled. And so there's things to do and there's expertise. Hopefully I could help my nation. Again, I was asked to do this by some elders, so that's why I'm doing this and going to do it for run the best of my ability and also serve the Ho-Chunk people as opposed to serving the Ho-Chunk Nation, which really the Ho-Chunk Nation is the people, and we have to always remember that.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, the gentleman from Ho-Chunk is now he's given up a minute of his time to the gentleman from Mille Lacs. So I was watching the proceedings this morning. They do that official protocol, you know, with having to recognize and call each other out of order and all that kind of stuff. So, well, let's talk a little bit about this impeachment vote. I mean, how do both of you fall on this? I'm assuming I kind of know how you both feel about it. Don has kind of hinted at that at the beginning, but particularly about the idea that he's been impeached before. This makes it a historic second impeachment, but you know, he's done a lot of things to Indian country as well. I mean, he was trying to get the the Keystone XL, that project pipeline, immediately restored as soon after Obama left office, who had put it in limbo. And he did that faux missing and murdered Indigenous women center around the country. There's one here now in Minnesota as well, and it was just kind of a show to curry votes. So, you know, what is your feeling? I mean, how strongly do you feel? I guess Don's already said, you know, he gets all urinated about him. So,
well, you know, ever since 45's been in office, he is an equal opportunity denigrator when it comes to communities of color in the American Indian community. He ran on a platform of fear, generating a sense of threat. I mean, early, you know, that was one of the first things his administration did, was to push through that Keystone pipeline, followed up by elected elders from various tribes represented in his office while he continued to use the derogatory term Pocahontas, which he has never relinquished in the 4 years of his presidency, where he continues to denigrate us and our people.
Right. And now we see why he doesn't get it, even though he was called on it.
He has opened up mining on many of our reservations. He's opening up land, federal land that is sacred to us, that, you know, has been stolen from us. And he's been opening these things up for mining, for uranium exploration, for drilling oil. And he's desecrated tribal lands on the US-Mexico border with this idiotic wall that he insists on building to keep the ants out, I guess, because I'm not quite sure, you know, what that's supposed to keep out. But
we saw how well that worked at the Capitol. These walls.
It's pretty porous when you step to the side and let everybody through.
The second day he signed over Dakota Access Pipeline, the second day in office, he tried to delist one of the oldest tribes in this country in the middle of the night. I had their president on my show, and how that went down was one of the most unbelievable things that I've ever heard in my life. He didn't hear about
You're
it
talking
till
about the
midnight.
Mashpee Wampanoag?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I remember that program. Okay.
And he talked about getting a phone call at midnight going, what's going on? And he had to make phone calls and find out that this attack on his nation was happening in the middle of the night.
And he went out of his way to have his staff dig up that portrait of Andrew Jackson to hang in his office. I mean, he sent us clear signs on day one exactly where he stood when it came to us and our people. We understood clearly. We didn't miss those signs. And
well, one other thing, when he went out to South Dakota to so-called Mount Rushmore, the Payasapa, he had what's his name again, with Indian Collective and then the Thunder Valley Development Co-op. He had him and his followers arrested. He had to go up on federal charges. I think he's still awaiting trial. So that Tilson, I forget if his first name is Keith or Mike Tilson. So he's persecuted through his Justice Department. Native people who are trying to protect sacred sites, and I'm sure that's happened in other parts of the country. So,
well, it's interesting what Don brought up earlier in the show, and that's that I look at the Republican Party as the colonizers and the relatives of the colonizers. And this hasn't changed at all, but they're not hiding behind anything. They are out front right now. And I think that's one of the most, when 45 was first elected, I saw this